Good afternoon. I'm 14 First Alert meteorologist Arden Gregory, and we are on alert overnight tonight into very early Friday morning for the possibility of a few strong to severe storms with damaging wind and a tornado threat. So let's start with the threat level. Where are we at right now? It was expanded earlier today. If you have the First Alert weather app, you got that push notification around 11:45 noon today. Initially, this level 1 risk really just included southeast Illinois. It was expanded east and now includes most of the tri-state. But again, we're still just at that level 1 risk for an isolated strong to severe storm later tonight. Widespread severe weather is not expected, and we're just one small part of a large section of the country outlooked for this isolated chance of severe weather. I mean, this goes from northern Illinois and Indiana through the tri-state all the way down into Mississippi and all the way west into parts of Missouri and Arkansas. Now, earlier today, there was a level 2 risk for southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, but those storms have already moved out. So they've kind of cleared that back end of the storm risk away now. They did have severe thunderstorm warnings and even some tornado warnings earlier today as these storms were moving out of Kansas and into parts of Missouri and Arkansas. But look at this loop over the past few hours. Notice when those storms were back in southwest Missouri, there was a lot more yellow and orange and red. The storms were more intense. They had heavier rain, more lightning. Now, though, as they've started to push east, you've seen that line kind of starting to thin out a bit, and you're seeing a lot more green and a lot less of the orange and red. So overall, it does seem like these storms are weakening, which is what we were expecting as they moved eastward. So we'll continue to monitor it very closely. There is still that possibility that we could get some isolated severe weather, but overall, our severe weather risk is low, and it does seem like these storms may weaken even more as they move into the tri-state. But there is a lot of kind of untapped energy out there. There's a lot of sheer potential for strong winds. So we'll just have to watch it closely as we go through the rest of the day. Notice we are dry across the tri-state right now. We've had a few very light, very spotty showers, really just sprinkles, and I wouldn't rule a little more of that out this afternoon, but we'll probably stay dry this evening. This model in particular is indicating the possibility of some hit or miss showers and storms a little earlier in the night, like closer to 8 or 9 o'clock. Most of the models, though, don't really have our storm chances picking up till closer to 11 p.m. So this will most likely be an overnight threat, I think mainly after 10 p.m. So these storms will likely move through while most folks are sleeping. Scattered showers and thunderstorms possibly lining up and potentially bringing us some damaging wind gusts as those storms roll through. Then it looks like these will probably be out of here by about 5 or 6 a.m. So this is again going to be an overnight threat. Right through the middle of the night tonight, 1, 2, 3 a.m. is when it looks like most of these storms will be moving through kind of the central part of the tri-state here. Then most of Friday is looking mainly cloudy but dry. You may remember we had been watching for a chance of another round of rain Friday night. It now seems like that rain is probably going to stay southeast of the tri-state. So we may still get a few hit or miss showers Friday night and into Saturday. Better chance on Saturday, but in general, after tonight, I don't think we'll see any more widespread rain, and I doubt we'll see any thunderstorm chances either. So we're sitting at this level 1 risk for storms rolling in from west to east later tonight, then lingering into early Friday morning. At that point, starting to push off to the southeast, though. So Friday, the main risk of severe weather would be a little bit more to the southeast, mainly in western Kentucky. Still, though, sitting at that level 1 risk. The main concern is that these storms may be capable of producing damaging wind gusts, but some brief heavy rainfall could also be possible. I think that would really only be a concern if you were on the road, because you may see some ponding where it can't clear off the road into the ditches and drains fast enough. But overall, our flooding risk is very low. Damaging winds are the main concern, and we can't rule out the possibility of an isolated tornado. You know, when you're looking at 60s in January, that should raise some alarm bells. It's a little too warm out there. There's a little too much energy for this time of year. Looking at kind of a mapped out version of that same information information here. Notice most of the tri-state sitting at this 5% risk of damaging winds. Not real worried about hail with this. And then we've got this 2% risk for tornadoes, mainly in Illinois, because again, we expect these storms to weaken some as they move from west to east across our region. A little bit of brief flooding can't be ruled out, but not really a concern. Rolling over into Friday, this is a little messy because it does include 2 days. It's one event, but spread from late Thursday into early Friday. Friday, again, damaging winds, the main threat, but there is that very isolated chance that we could maybe get a tornado. Now, this is good advice anytime, but especially with an overnight severe weather threat. Please do not be relying on storm sirens. Storm sirens were designed back before we had cell phones that, kept that information with you all the time. They were designed to alert people who were outside that they needed to move inside and turn on the radio or the TV to get weather information. They're not designed to alert people who are already indoors, and they're certainly not designed to wake you up if you are sleeping. So please do not depend on storm sirens. Instead, you want to have at least one, preferably 2 ways to receive warnings that are going to wake you up in the middle of the night. The First Alert Weather app is a great resource. If you don't know how to turn on those alerts, I'm going to go through that at the very end of this stream. So just stick with me all the way to through to the end, and I'll show you how to set up those alerts on your phone if you want. And then a secondary source would be a NOAA weather radio. A lot of folks in the tri-state have one of those. Make sure yours is on and working, and it's always good to also have a battery backup just in case you do lose power, that would still go off. But that's 2 really good consistent ways to get warnings that as long as you've got those notifications turned on and the volume turned up, those should wake you up in the middle of the night. But again, we don't want anyone depending on storm sirens when there's an overnight severe weather threat. Let's check in on the comments here. A lot of people just sort of giving well wishes that they hope it doesn't get bad tonight. I don't think it probably will, but it could. I don't know if that makes sense. I would say the most likely scenario is that we get some general kind of run-of-the-mill thunderstorms, some strong winds, maybe some very isolated wind damage, branches down, things like that. That's the most likely scenario. It's also possible, though, that things come together just right and we get maybe some more significant wind damage or maybe even a tornado. That's not likely, but it is possible. And so we want you to be prepared for that worst case scenario. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right? That's what we're hoping for here today. Good afternoon to everybody in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in and for commenting. We appreciate that. Zach kind of reiterating what I just said, most thunderstorms in this scenario are probably not going to be severe. And we're not expecting widespread severe weather of any kind. There is that isolated chance, though, that some of these storms could become severe. Damaging winds, the main concern, but even a tornado possible. So again, it's not likely, but it's possible, and we just want you to be prepared, especially with it being overnight. We don't want anyone to be caught off guard by this. So we want to make sure everyone goes to bed tonight prepared and ready for the possibility of severe weather, knowing there's a good chance that we all come through this without any severe weather, but we just want to make sure that you're prepared for that possibility. All right, let's move forward now with the rest of the forecast, because these temperatures are also worth at least mentioning, right? I don't know if you've stepped outside yet today, but it does not feel like January out there, which again should set off some alarm bells in your head. This is part of why we're talking about potential severe weather, because we're in the 60s in January. It is 63 degrees right now in Evansville and Newburgh, 64 in Henderson and Owensboro. Check out farther south though, 68 right now in Madisonville, Greenville sitting at 69. Almost at 70 degrees here in January. And all of this has to do with our wind direction. You'll notice we don't have a lot of sunshine warming us up. It's pretty cloudy out there, but we've got this warm breeze just flowing in from the south, pulling warmer air from the south up into the tri-state. And that surge of southerly air is what's pushing our temperatures into those 60s today. And it's still going to be very breezy overnight. Winds still coming in from the south-southwest around 12 to 22 miles an hour consistently. we'll probably have some gusts closer to 30, 35, maybe even 40 miles an hour, and that's outside of the thunderstorm. So it is going to be windy overnight. That's also why it's going to be warm. Our temperatures are only going to dip into the upper 50s overnight tonight. The record warm low for tonight is 49 degrees. That record was set back in 1935. We're only going to dip into the upper 50s tonight, which makes it seem like home run. We're obviously going to break that record, but you have to keep in mind records are for a full 24 hours, midnight to midnight. We're not going to get below 49 tonight, but by the end of the day tomorrow, it's probably going to be colder than 58 because that cold front is going to move through early in the day. So on Friday, we've got a high in the lower 60s. Keep in mind our record for the day is 65. So I don't think we'll quite make it to the record, but it will be a lot closer to the record than it will be to the normal, right? But that high in the lower 60s, we're going to hit that Friday morning. Then as those storms move out and that cold front moves through, our wind direction is going to shift. Colder, drier air starts to come in from the west-northwest. It's still going to be breezy, but rather than pulling warm air from the south, it's going to be pulling colder, drier air in from the northwest, and our temperatures are going to gradually drop throughout the day on Friday. Then it gets even colder as we get into the weekend. So we've had a nice little stretch of warmer than average weather this week, but it is soon coming to an end. Look at our temperatures so far. I mean, we're just a week into the month of January here. We've gone from highs in the 30s to highs in the 60s in that week. Again, we're hitting the 60s one more time today. We have not had any rain yet. That's going to change tonight. We've got this cold front coming in, and look at the impact that's going to have on our temperatures. We're looking at, lows in the upper 50s to low 60s. We'll be just kind of hovering right around 60 overnight and into Friday morning. So tonight's low and tomorrow's high will be very close to the same temperature. Then our temperatures start to drop. It gets gradually cooler, kind of dropping back out of the 60s and through the 50s tomorrow. We'll then dip into the 40s Friday night into Saturday morning. Saturday, high around 50. A secondary cold front's going to move through, bringing us another shot of cold air. It's also why we could still get a few more lingering showers on Saturday. Then as that second shot of cold air moves in, Sunday is where it's really going to feel like January again. We're talking about lows in the mid to upper 20s and then highs in the mid 30s on Sunday. We do gradually start to warm back up as we get into next week. 40s Monday, 50s Tuesday. Another weaker cold front is going to move through on Wednesday. I don't think we'll see any thunderstorms or severe weather of any kind from that. It'll bring us just a few very scattered rain showers, nothing that impactful, but it will drop our temperatures again. So we will see those highs falling back into the mid 30s then by the end of next week. And the extended outlook for January 16th, that would be Friday of next week, up through January 22nd. So we're talking about next weekend now. The general trend does show below average temperatures with near average precipitation. So we've got some ups and downs in the week ahead. Very warm out there today, still warm into tomorrow morning. But again, we have that chance of thunderstorms overnight tonight into early Friday as that cold front moves in. Behind that high of 61 will be tomorrow morning. It'll then get gradually colder, falling back through the 50s as the day goes on. High around 50 Saturday. That cold air really hits its stride on Sunday. Even though it's going to be mostly sunny, there will be a few clouds. Some models are even hinting at the chance of a brief flurry. No significant snow of any kind, though, nothing that's going to stick, but it will be cold. Highs in the mid 30s. We gradually start to warm back up then Monday, Tuesday. Another weak cold front moves through Wednesday, maybe a few showers. Then that drops us back into the 30s, and I think that colder air will stick with us then through next weekend. So that's something hung up in my mic cord here. That's something that we will be monitoring very closely. Let's see if we have any other questions. Oh, again, people just hoping that we don't get bad weather, asking about their specific location. The risk level is really pretty similar across the entire region. Let me pull that up for you here. Notice we're just about all in that level 1 risk, maybe a slightly lower chance on the far eastern edge of the tri-state, but you know, we're splitting hairs here. We're getting down to just a matter of a few miles whether or not it's going to cover the whole tri-state. So most of us are essentially in that level 1 risk for isolated strong to severe storms tonight. When you look at the individual threats, I will say for most of us, this is mainly a wind threat. An isolated tornado can't be ruled out though, and that tornado threat is primarily for the western end of the tri-state. So that would be southeast Illinois. That's where that tornado threat is more focused. But again, all of this is a low level risk. This is not a situation where we're expecting widespread severe weather. This is not going to be an outbreak of any kind. Most of these thunderstorms are going to be general, run-of-the-mill, non-severe thunderstorms. You'll get some gusty winds, some heavy rain, a little thunder and lightning, and that will be about it. But there's that chance that one or two of them, we don't know exactly where, could potentially, tap into some of this energy, tap into those stronger winds aloft and really get going. And at that point, you could end up with severe thunderstorms that may be capable of producing damaging winds that could, cause some power outages, knock down some limbs or a weakened tree, things like that. Or in the most extreme scenario, even produce a tornado. That is a possibility. More than likely, it'll be just run-of-the-mill thunderstorms, but it's possible. The ingredients are there. Will they all come together just right? We won't know till it happens, but their ingredients are there. It's possible that we could even get a tornado tonight. So that's why, again, just an abundance of caution. We just want to make sure that everyone is prepared and aware. Don't go to sleep tonight without knowing that there is that chance of storms. Make sure you have a way to receive warnings and that you're prepared just in case. Know where your safe place is. Go over that severe weather safety plan with your family tonight before everybody goes to bed, so that if a warning is issued, you can act very quickly and you're not going to bed real anxious about whether or not you're ready. Just go to bed already prepared, and then if a warning is issued, get up, take action quickly, everybody will be just fine. But again, the most likely scenario is that these are non-severe storms. We get a little wind, little rain, little lightning, that's about it. But we want you to be ready just in case. It's possible. Temperatures are in the 60s. We've got strong winds, lots of shear. The ingredients are there. That doesn't mean that we're going to see them come together just right, though. We are predicting the future here, folks, so give us a little grace. All right. Moving through the rest of the week then, we've kind of gone over that forecast in pretty good detail. For those of you who are hanging in there because you don't know how to set up the alerts on your phone, I am getting ready to go over that. I'm not seeing any other questions in the comments. Again, some folks just kind of asking about their specific location. We went over that. Greatest chances in Illinois because I do think it'll kind of weaken as it moves across. But you could get an isolated severe thunderstorm anywhere in the tri-state tonight. We're all kind of in that same boat together. All right, let's talk about how to set up the mobile alerts on your phone. If you have the First Alert Weather app, some of you may be watching me on your phone, so you can't do this at the same time, so just pay attention. It's pretty straightforward. You should be able to remember how to do this once you've seen me do it. When you open up your phone to the First Alert Weather app, you should see a screen that looks something like this. That should be something you're familiar with. What you're going to do is click on these three bars in the top right corner. Once you do that, it's going to bring up this screen, and from there you want to click on Settings. Once you're in that Settings menu, it's going to look something like this, and what you're going to look for first is, do you have this turned on? This is next to 14 first alerts. If you have that turned off, you know how I mentioned earlier, as long as you've got the app, you should have already known that the severe weather outlook was expanded. If you didn't get that alert, it's probably because you have these turned off. If you turn that on, that means you're going to get messages from the 14 First Alert Weather Team. So outside of newscasts, oftentimes we will send out updates and things about what's going on, tracking severe weather as it comes in. That's how you're going to get those notifications, is if that's turned on. If you just specifically want to get the warnings. If there's a warning issued for your location, that's the next one down. It says weather notification types. If it says none active next to that, you're not getting those alerts, and we want to change that. So click on that. It's going to bring this up. All of these are going to be grayed out. So you want to hit enable notifications for a location. At that point, it's going to bring up this menu. If you've got this little arrow right next to follow me, that means it's going to follow your cell phone's location. So even if you're out away from home, it's still going to be tracking you, and it'll alert your phone if whatever location you're in, even if you're on vacation, even if you're out of state, if a warning is issued for your location, it's going to give you that notification. You can also set it to an actual city. I recommend follow me. That's the one you want to hit those 3 dots next to and have enable notifications with that little bell. Once you hit that, you should see a little bell next to that. So if you have follow me with a little bell next to it, that means it's alerting you for your location. You can set this up for specific locations as well. Some people set it, to their home or whatever like that, just so even if they're away from home, maybe they've got kids or pets or something at home, they would know if a warning is issued for that location as well. But once you've got that little bell next to whatever you want the alerts for, tap back on the right side of the screen. That'll clear away. These aren't grayed out anymore. Now you can go one by one. If you only want to get notifications for severe weather, severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, then just turn on that one. I recommend leaving them all on, then it's going to notify you if there's a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning issued for your location, but it'll also ping your phone if a wind advisory is issued, if a flood warning is issued, if you get put in a winter weather advisory, any kind of watch, warning, or advisory would now ping your phone so that you're aware. I like to keep them all on, but if you don't want that many notifications, you can adjust that here in the app. Now let's go back to that other screen. Now it'll say 14 first alerts turned on, and then next to that weather notification types, it'll now show how many types you have selected. If you've got everything, I think the number is 27. The final step is the very bottom one here, notification sounds. When we're talking about an overnight severe weather threat, where I'm saying make sure you've got a way to receive warnings that's going to wake you up, you want to make sure those sounds are on. So once you click that, next to notification sounds, make sure this is turned to green. If that's grayed out, that means it's going to give you like a push notification, but it's not going to make a noise. So you want to have that turned on to make sure that is going to actually alert you. But there is a catch to that. Make sure you read the fine print here. It says here, sounds are played when a notification is displayed on your phone. Okay, right? That's what we wanted. This is the important part. No sound will ever be played when your phone is set to vibrate or do not disturb. So even if you have that turned on, if you have your phone on silent, as most of us probably do, it's still not going to make a noise when a warning is issued. So before you go to bed tonight, take your phone off silent, turn the volume all the way up. Then if a warning is issued, that notification is going to make a sound, and you can adjust what sound you want that to be. I think the default is announce. Which means a voice will come on. I actually think it's Jeff Lyons' voice that says, a weather alert has been issued for your location. You can change it though to, different alarm tones, bells, and things like that if you want something different. So there's a lot of options in the First Alert Weather app. You can modify it to do exactly what you want it to do, to get just the alerts you want, just for the locations that you want, in just the way that you want. It's just a matter of digging into that settings menu there and finding your way around. Just poke around until you figure out what you want in there. So that would be my recommendation. Just to make sure your bases are covered for this overnight severe weather threat, go on your First Alert app, make sure those notifications are turned on, make sure the alert sounds are turned on, and then before you go to bed tonight, just take your phone off vibrate so that it will actually make a noise if a warning is issued for your location. All right. If there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope everybody understands the timing and the threats from this now. Again, this is an overnight threat, mainly after 10 p.m., should be over by about 5 a.m. So unfortunately, that means these storms are going to move through almost exclusively when most folks are in bed asleep. That's why it's important to have a reliable way to receive warnings that is going to wake you up. Odds are you're not going to need it. I think there's a good chance most of these are just general run-of-the-mill thunderstorms, but I want to make sure you're prepared just in case we do get that warning and it's for your location. I would hate for you to be caught off guard by that. So everybody, please stay safe, stay alert, stay aware, have a way to receive warnings just in case we could get some damaging winds or maybe even a tornado if those ingredients come together just right tonight. Still going to be very warm out there through tonight and into tomorrow morning, but it will be colder at the end of the day than it will be at the start. So when you step out your door Friday morning, just know when you come back home in the afternoon, it's going to be colder rather than warmer as that cooler air is going to filter in throughout the day. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, and obviously we'll have an updated look at your forecast, and we'll be tracking these all night long. We've got newscasts at 4, 5, and 6, the streaming show at 9, and then another newscast at 10. And we will have members of the 14 First Alert weather team here all night long, bringing you updates on the app or on our streaming platforms or over the air if it gets that serious, to make sure that we're all on the same page about what's happening, where the threats are, what the concerns are going to be. We're not going to leave you in the lurch, okay? We're going to be here all night too. So everybody just stay tuned, and I think we'll all get through tonight just fine. All right, turn on those alerts. Have a good rest of your day.